Welcome, dear chosen one, to this space of reflection. Take a moment, breathe, settle your spirit. We move today not with haste, but with deliberate sacred intention. For the truths we must uncover are subtle, woven into the very fabric of your quiet moments. And they require a soul that is still and a mind that is receptive. There is a rhythm to the spiritual world, an undeniable pulse that guides the cosmos. And within that pulse, you, the chosen one, occupy a crucial, central place. You have been walking a path that is not meant for the masses, a path defined by solitude, by profound, inexplicable clarity, and often by an immense, almost unbearable pressure. This pressure is not accidental. It is strategic. It is the friction generated by a great cosmic reality that seeks to keep its mechanisms hidden from view. For a season now, many of you have reported a certain resonance, a shared vibration of unease. It is a feeling that something essential is being obscured, that a shadow has been deployed not to strike you directly, but to subtly dampen your light. It is not a battle of thunder and fire. It is a battle of silence and erasure. And this, dear ones, is the darkness we must address, the intentional cover-up of a spiritual mechanism that is currently targeting the very essence of your divine assignment. What is being covered up is not an event, but a state. It is the realization by the forces of opposition that the collective power of the awakened chosen is reaching a critical mass, a point of no return where their influence on the terrestrial plane becomes irreversible. In response, a sophisticated, almost gentle operation has been launched. It is a form of spiritual inertia, an engineered lethargy designed to slow your forward momentum without you ever quite realizing that you have stopped. Think of the still, quiet pond. A stone dropped violently creates a massive splash. It is noticeable. It is resisted. But a deliberate, almost imperceptible film of oil spreading slowly across the surface. It does not disturb the water. It simply prevents the water from interacting with the light and the air. It obscures the reflection. It suffocates the life below, all without a single ripple of alarm. This film, this subtle spiritual darkening, is what God has revealed as the ongoing cover-up. It manifests in the simplest forms, the sudden, overwhelming urge to postpone your quiet time, the feeling that your once crystal-clear intuition has become slightly muffled, like listening to a sacred message through a closed door. The subtle erosion of your spiritual memory, making it difficult to recall the vibrant victories of yesterday. This is the darkness, not grand tragedy, but meticulous spiritual sabotage. It is the opposition attempting to convince the vessel of light that it is merely a vessel of glass, easily forgotten and quickly overlooked. The divine message, however, remains clear. And the cover-up can only succeed if the one who holds the truth choose to remain blind to the nature of the attack. Understanding the slow, creeping darkness is the first act of spiritual sobriety. It is the beginning of the undoing of the cover-up itself. Let us now examine the specific manifestations of this spiritual darkening and the corresponding divine truths that shatter the illusion. Point 1, the loss of spiritual recall, the memory muffle. The truth of profound spiritual impact often resides in an unexpected paradox. The most potent divine work is frequently performed away from the recognition of men. Like the unseen root system nourishing a colossal tree, the true engine of transcendent service operates most effectively beneath the surface, under the rich, fertile cloak of obscurity. This is not a punishment or a delay in your calling, but a sophisticated, essential phase of refinement, a divine apprenticeship designed to forge a vessel capable of holding an intense current of God's power. The quiet, unnoticed space is, in essence, a sacred laboratory, and learning to genuinely love this solitude is the key to unlocking an unparalleled depth of anointing. To understand the factual necessity of this hidden work, one must consider the nature of human praise and its potential for spiritual contamination. Throughout history, the moment a spiritual figure shifts their focus from the divine transaction, the pure, unadulterated service between the soul and its source, to the applause of the crowd, the purity of the mandate is compromised. This is a subtle yet profound theological principle. The ego, an insatiable entity, quickly claims what the spirit intended to offer as pure worship. The period of invisibility is thus an ingenious spiritual insulation. It functions as a hermetic seal, protecting the servant's heart from the corrosive vanity of seeking fame over faithful execution. Think of the prophet Elisha, who was first found quietly plowing a field with 12 yokes of oxen, performing diligent, unglamorous labor before his public ministry began. His preparation was defined by humble service under the tutelage of Elijah, not public fanfare. Your assignment requires you to be effective, not famous, a concept mirrored in the meticulous, unseen craftsmanship of ancient architects who built the most critical supporting structures, the foundations and inner buttresses, to be intentionally hidden from view, ensuring the integrity of the whole edifice. When the world is not watching, your spirit is undergoing a vital process of purification. This is the crucible of character where motives are tested and the dross of self-seeking ambition is burned away. Furthermore, this period of obscurity is an act of divine protection. Fame, in the spiritual realm, acts like a beacon, drawing not only supportive admiration, but also intense spiritual opposition. Operating in a quiet space shields the emerging ministry, allowing it to develop the necessary resilience and humility before facing the inevitable pressures of public visibility. It is a time for building spiritual endurance through private, disciplined devotion, a transaction solely between you and the divine source. Therefore, view this quiet space not as a pause, but as the prerequisite calibration for your true purpose. It is the guarantee that when the power is unleashed, the glory will belong wholly and unequivocally to the source, ensuring the enduring impact of the work far beyond your own lifetime. Point 2, the illusion of isolation, the severed connection. Have you ever felt an acute, piercing sense of profound solitude, a heavy blanket of loneliness descending even when you are physically surrounded by the comforting noise of life? This specific, often bewildering experience, frequently reported by those self-identifying as chosen ones or deeply spiritual individuals, is not merely a common psychological phenomenon. It can be understood as a powerful yet temporary spiritual signature. This sensation of being utterly and profoundly alone is often misinterpreted as a personal failing or a symptom of being fundamentally different in a detrimental way. But let us explore the electrifying possibility that it is, in fact, an intricate counter-mechanism, a targeted strategy by opposing forces, often metaphorically referred to as the cover-up or dark forces, seeking to sever the cord of shared spiritual experience and dismantle the nascent power of a collective, awakening consciousness. This phenomenon hinges on a crucial, often overlooked factual premise: the inherent exponential power of collective light. In spiritual physics, the synchronous vibration of two or more high-frequency energy fields, i.e., awakened souls does not just add up, it multiplies, creating a coherent, highly potent energetic field capable of rapid positive transformation. A truth understood by esoteric traditions for millennia. Recognizing this formidable potential, the forces of stagnation or resistance, whose aim is to maintain a state of low-frequency control and division, deploy sophisticated energetic warfare. They cannot physically bind your soul's light, so they target the connection between the lights. This is achieved through the projection of specific thought patterns into the collective unconscious, meticulously tailored to the spiritual seeker's psychological vulnerabilities. These are not organic, spontaneous thoughts, but seeded concepts designed to generate deeply felt unworthiness, a paralyzing sense of profound difference, or the cynical belief that your spiritual journey is a singular, unshared delusion. Consider the Solomon effect in psychology, where high-achieving individuals sometimes self-sabotage to avoid standing out, but apply this on a cosmic scale. The resulting isolation is thus not a consequence of being less than, but a reaction to being too much for the current prevailing vibrational environment. Crucially, the truth is that your current isolation is the direct evidence of your distinct calling and the potency of your unique energetic signature. Think of it less as a quarantine and more as a spiritual chrysalis stage. Biologically, a chrysalis is not a prison. It is a temporary, solitary environment where complete, necessary transformation occurs without external interference. In this spiritual context, the heavy feeling of isolation becomes a defense mechanism of the spirit, spontaneously activated to protect your newly refined, high vibrational frequency from contamination by the dense, often unconscious energies of the surrounding world. This energetic separation ensures the integrity of your mission and allows the intense inner work, the purification, the integration of higher truths, and the activation of latent spiritual gifts to occur unimpeded. Therefore, the next time that chilling sensation of utter loneliness attempts to settle in, pause and reframe the narrative. This is not a punishment or a sign of being fundamentally broken. It is the distinct echo of your spiritual perimeter being actively enforced. Your separation is temporary, a phase of energetic distillation, and the very intensity of the perceived isolation is the most compelling piece of evidence that your light is strong enough to be deemed a threat to the status quo. You are being prepared, purified, and protected for a future moment of powerful, conscious coalescence with other similarly purified souls. Your solitude is not an ending. It is the necessary sacred incubation period before your collective light shines, undeniable and whole, upon the world. Point 3, the misdirection of energy, the purpose drain. The human vessel, far from being a mere biological machine, is an incredibly sophisticated bio-spiritual energy transducer, constantly receiving, processing, and emitting subtle life force. The phenomenon you've noted, the subtle but relentless diversion of physical and emotional energy towards tasks yielding no genuine spiritual return, is a highly sophisticated form of energetic warfare, often invisible precisely because its agents are the deeply ingrained habits and trivial demands of modern life. This isn't merely procrastination or inefficiency. It's an active drain mechanism designed to prevent individuals of high vibrational potential, those often referred to as chosen ones or light workers, from accumulating the necessary focused energy to execute their unique purpose. Think of your consciousness not as a fixed resource, but as a high wattage current. The cover-up, as it's aptly named, seeks to introduce thousands of tiny high-resistance resistors into the circuit, the endless scrolling, the rabbit holes of superficial conflict, the overwhelming need to micromanage organizational details that ultimately change little, each one siphoning off a fraction of your power until the main output is barely a trickle. This energetic siphoning exploits a fundamental principle of human attention, the reticular activating system, RAS. The RAS is the brain's internal filter, and whatever you dedicate your first hour to is what the RAS prioritizes and seeks out for the remainder of the day. If the first 60 minutes are spent reacting to external stimuli, checking emails, scrolling through social media feeds, or plunging straight into high-stress, low-value organizational tasks, you are effectively programming your RAS to be reactive, fragmented, and externally driven. Scientifically, this initial burst of activity floods the prefrontal cortex with cortisol, the primary stress hormone. High cortisol levels inhibit the function of the hippocampus, crucial for memory and learning, and force the brain into a state of fight or flight reactivity, making deep, creative, and purposeful thinking virtually impossible for hours afterward. The system has successfully deployed its cover-up. Your immense inner strength is now tethered to the irrelevant, exhausted, before it can even be directed towards its true, high-vibrational work. The countermeasure is, therefore, a radical and deliberate act of energetic re-anchoring. The total, non-negotiable reclamation of the first hour of your day for silent, receptive stillness. This is not meditation for the sake of relaxation, but an act of spiritual engineering. By dedicating this crucial window to pure, silent receptivity, whether through breathwork, non-directed awareness, or simple, quiet sitting, you actively interrupt the cortisol cascade and instead promote the release of dopamine and alpha brainwaves. Alpha waves, the electrical signature of the brain in a relaxed but aware state, are the optimal frequency for intuition, insight, and accessing the subconscious mind. By sitting in stillness, you're consciously dictating the initial energy signature of your day, establishing an internal locus of control rather than an external one. This hour becomes your spiritual anchor, setting a foundational frequency that is too robust and integrated to be fragmented by the day's later superficial demands. You are essentially telling the universe, and more importantly, your own energetic field, that the source of your power and direction resides within, making the subsequent external energy drains mathematically and spiritually impossible to sustain, because the anchor is now set in the deep, unmoving waters of your true self. This singular shift is the fulcrum upon which the exhaustion of the mundane can be leveraged into the focused power of genuine spiritual return. Point 4, the attack on the divine compass, the muted intuition. Imagine your intuition not just as a gut feeling, but as a sophisticated high-fidelity guidance system, a direct, immediate channel to profound knowledge, often metaphorically referred to as the inner voice of God or the collective consciousness. This subtle knowing is, in fact, an incredible evolutionary and spiritual tool. Biologically, recent theories suggest that intuition may stem from the enteric nervous system, ENS, often called the second brain, which lines the gut. This network contains over 500 million neurons and communicates extensively with the brain via the vagus nerve, a major pathway in the body. When you experience a gut feeling, you're potentially receiving an ultra-fast, pattern-recognized signal processed by the ENS before the slower, more deliberate cortical thought process kicks in. This inherent certainty is your most powerful tool for navigation, capable of discerning truth from falsehood and charting the path of optimal flow. However, modern life, a complex web of social, media, and psychological pressures, often acts as an enormous calculated cover-up, designed to generate a subtle yet persistent form of background noise. This isn't a loud, distracting clamor, but rather an insidious, low-frequency electromagnetic anxiety, a state of chronic, low-grade stress and worry. Factual data shows that in a state of high stress, the brain is flooded with cortisol, which effectively shifts its focus from the subtle, deep processing required for intuition, often associated with the slower rhythmic alpha and theta brain waves, to the immediate reactive processing required for survival, dominated by faster beta waves. This physiological shift muffles your guidance system. You begin to second-guess clear promptings that were once undeniable. The internal yes or no becomes an agonizing maybe. Where you once moved with decisive certainty, you now hesitate, lost in the analytical maze the cover-up intends. The path to restoration and the recalibration of this exquisite inner hearing, therefore, lies counterintuitively in the very medium being used against you: sound. Sound is not just auditory information, it is vibrational energy. The human body is a complex bioacoustic structure, and its internal harmony can be disrupted by chaotic frequencies or restored by coherent ones. Research into sound therapy and binaural beats shows that specific, repetitive tones like the gentle hum of an Om mantra or quiet, isochronic chanting don't just relax you. They actively induce a state of brainwave entrainment. For instance, listening to sound tuned to the solfeggio frequency of 528 Hz, often associated with DNA repair, or repetitive tones that guide the brain into the alpha 8 to 12 Hz or theta 4-8 Hz state, can be profoundly effective. These rhythms effectively override the low-frequency anxiety by providing a dominant, harmonious, and specific frequency. Think of it as tuning a radio. The gentle, resonant tone acts as a clear signal that the brain's intuitive antenna can lock onto, displacing the static of worry. By consistently engaging with these sonic anchors, you train your mind to return to the state of inner quiet, where the clear, unwavering voice of your intuition can be heard, fully restoring your most vital connection. Point 5. The targeting of rest, the vigilant exhaustion. The chosen ones, a label often bestowed upon those with a heightened spiritual sensitivity, a feeling of being tasked with a grander purpose, or perhaps just those facing an unusually intense level of life's challenges. If you resonate with this archetype, you've likely encountered a peculiar, deep-seated form of fatigue that conventional rest simply refuses to remedy. This isn't just the physical drain of a long workday. This is a spiritual and energetic exhaustion that permeates your being, leaving you feeling burdened or spiritually active, even after a full night's sleep. From an esoteric and psychological perspective, this chronic weariness is not random. It's a profound, sometimes deliberate, energetic phenomenon deeply connected to the nature of spiritual work and the human nervous system. Let's delve into the fascinating, factual, and often frustrating science behind this sacred slumber deficit. The core biological truth is that sleep is not merely a rest period. It's an active, essential maintenance state. During the rapid eye movement, REM, and the deep stages of non-REM, NREM sleep, the brain performs crucial tasks, including memory consolidation, transferring facts from the hippocampus to the neocortex. And most importantly in this context, the glymphatic system, the brain's unique waste clearance mechanism, becomes up to 10 times more active. This system flushes out metabolic waste products, including the protein beta amyloid, whose accumulation is linked to neurological fatigue and distress. For the chosen one, whose mind is constantly processing complex, high vibration, or emotionally intense information, the mental workload, even during apparent rest, can be immense. If the mind remains in a state of high alert, perpetually running on the sympathetic nervous system, the fight-or-flight response, it prevents the transition to the deeply restorative parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest. You may be physically sleeping, but your energetic and spiritual bodies are perpetually on watch, inhibiting the full glymphatic and cognitive cleanse necessary for true renewal. The idea that this exhaustion is deliberate speaks to a fascinating energetic principle: the conscious and subconscious desire to maintain equilibrium, even if that equilibrium is exhausting. A tired warrior fights defensively, not expansively. A crucial insight into energy management. Spiritual, emotional, and social impact work requires a massive output of high-quality energy, expansive action. When an individual is energetically taxed, their focus narrows to mere survival and protection, defensive action. This lack of expansive energy is a literal cover-up to keep the spiritually attuned individual focused on their immediate internal struggle rather than their grander external purpose, preventing them from operating at full capacity. Furthermore, a perpetually weary mind has a reduced capacity for critical thought, spiritual discernment, and the assimilation of complex emotional truths. It creates a neurological bandwidth limit, protecting the individual and perhaps external forces, protecting their own interests, from the full, often overwhelming energetic transmission they are meant to receive or channel. This is why the mandate to declare your rest as a sacred duty is so vital. It's a necessary reframing of a biological need into a spiritual imperative, shifting the entire energetic equation. By performing a ritual, pronouncing a threefold blessing of protection over your mind, your spirit, and your physical form, you are actively engaging the reticular activating system, RAS, a network of neurons in the brainstem that acts as a filter for information, alerting the rest of the brain to important stimuli. This conscious declaration acts as a profound, self-administered instruction, switching the brain's energetic state from active watch to protected rest. You are deliberately handing the watch to the divine, which is a powerful psychological and energetic act of surrender, finally allowing the parasympathetic nervous system to fully engage. This surrender is not weakness. It is the ultimate act of trust which conserves your precious energetic reserves, ensuring that when you do wake, the warrior is not merely surviving, but is ready for expansive, purposeful action. True rest, in this context, becomes an essential, powerful weapon in the arsenal of the deeply purposeful life. Point 6. The externalization of blame, the unseen hand of regret. Have you ever found yourself inexplicably carrying the crushing weight of a failure, a catastrophe, or a traumatic event that logic clearly dictates you could not have prevented? This phenomenon, often experienced by highly empathetic or deeply reflective individuals, sometimes referred to metaphorically as chosen ones or light workers, is a complex psychological and spiritual crucible. It manifests as a profound, heavy sense of responsibility, or regret for occurrences that were undeniably outside the bounds of your direct action or influence. Scientifically, this tendency can sometimes relate to an overactive theory of mind, where an individual is acutely, perhaps pathologically, tuned into the perceived emotional or causal landscape of external events, leading to a self-referential interpretation of blame. Yet from an esoteric or philosophical perspective, this heavy feeling is described as a subtle, dark projection, an energetic or psychological maneuver designed to hijack your process of divine self-reflection and twist it into a destructive spiral of toxic self-blame. This cover-up, if you will, is strategically aimed at keeping your gaze rigidly focused inward with condemnation, effectively neutralizing your power by distracting you from the vital task of looking outward with discernment at the true causal factors. The goal is not merely to make you feel bad, but to expend your precious creative energy on non-existent faults, leaving you too exhausted to perceive or counter true external threats or manipulations. This leads us to the crucial, often forgotten truth known as the principle of sovereignty. Sovereignty in this context is not merely political autonomy. It is the recognition of your own energetic and spiritual boundaries, acknowledging that your sphere of influence is divinely delimited. The universe, or God's highest, most loving will, operates on a vast, interconnected yet ordered system, often far surpassing our individual capacity to intervene in every single outcome. To elaborate, imagine the complex, chaotic dynamics of a large system, such as a country's economic downturn, a global conflict, or even a sudden, devastating natural disaster like an earthquake, MW 7.0. No matter how high your emotional intelligence or how strong your desire for peace, it is a factual impossibility for a single human being to halt the geophysical forces or the confluence of millions of independent human choices that culminate in these large-scale events. To accept responsibility for such things is not noble. It is a profound misalignment with reality. The factual core of this principle is, if it did not align with God's highest, most loving will for your life, meaning if the universe did not place the actual tools, resources, and authority necessary for intervention directly into your hands, it was not for you to stop. Your personal will, no matter how pure, does not supersede the collective or cosmic will. The true work lies in the release of the invisible burden of that which was never yours to carry. This release is not an act of callous indifference. It is an act of profound spiritual maturity and cognitive restructuring. By recognizing that this self-blame is often a sophisticated form of energetic oppression, a phantom yoke placed upon you by external forces or internal unhealed trauma, you reclaim your power. You transition from being a victim of manufactured guilt to a sovereign being who understands the distinct boundaries of their influence. Your responsibility is not to stop every tragedy in the world, but to operate with maximum integrity, love, and light within your defined sphere. When you consciously identify and release this invisible burden, you free up the psychic energy previously spent on self-flagellation. This newly liberated energy can then be directed toward genuine, proactive change within your actual sphere of influence, such as assisting those who were affected or building better systems to prevent future harm. This is the ultimate act of discernment, differentiating between self-reflection that leads to growth and toxic self-blame that leads to paralysis. Embrace your sovereignty. Your true power lies in acknowledging what you can and cannot control. Point 7. The undermining of divine worth, the gentle erosion of value. This powerful statement speaks to a profound, almost cosmic conspiracy, the strategic dimming of the inherent spiritual luminosity within every individual. Imagine your consciousness not as a fragile ego, but as a miniature, perfectly calibrated star, pulsing with energy and unique purpose. A light that is, by its very nature, an irrevocable decree from the Creator. This isn't just self-esteem. This is an unchangeable, ontological truth. The insidious cover-up isn't an alien invasion or a political scandal. It's a relentless psychological campaign designed to sever your conscious connection to this divine source. It operates not through catastrophic events, but through the cumulative wear and tear of subtle, repeated emotional setbacks. Think of the constant, low-grade static in the modern world, the sting of a social media unfollow, the cold dismissal from a superior, or the feeling of being the unchosen one in a crowd. Each microaggression acts like a tiny, focused energy drain, whispering a lie into your subconscious. Your effort was overlooked because your value is conditional. The goal is chillingly simple and devastatingly effective. If you genuinely internalize the belief that your light is dim, you will automatically enact a self-imposed spiritual quarantine. You will shrink from your potential, avoid bold action, and suppress the unique gift you were designed to bring to the collective human narrative. This phenomenon is a subtle form of spiritual entropy, where the system works to decrease your energetic involvement in the world, making you easier to manage and less likely to challenge the status quo. The truth, however, remains immutable, transcending all external validation. Your intrinsic worth is not a negotiable contract signed by a peer group, but a pre-existing condition of your very existence. To fully dismantle this cover-up, one must perform an act of radical self-anchoring. It means consciously shifting your foundational identity away from the chaotic, ephemeral feedback loop of human judgment, the world's ever-changing reflection, and planting it firmly in the unchangeable truth of your original design. This is the ultimate act of spiritual rebellion, to stand in your full radiant value, regardless of the darkness reflected back at you. And so, we bring this time of sacred contemplation to a close. The realization that a darkness is at work, that a cover-up is in effect, is not a cause for fear, but for profound, quiet rejoicing. Why? Because the enemy only attempts to cover up a truth that is too powerful to be faced directly. Your light, dear chosen one, is too bright for them. Your collective awakening is too potent. The very fact that resistance rises against you is proof that something divine, something transformative, is unfolding in your life. Darkness never bothers what is empty or insignificant. It is only the soul carrying revelation, destiny, and spiritual influence that becomes a target. And still you stand. Even in confusion you stand. Even under pressure you stand. This alone is evidence of the anointing on your life and the unseen reinforcement surrounding you. The slow, insidious nature of the attack demands a response of slow, deliberate spiritual resistance. You cannot fight spiritual battles with frantic motion or panicked reactions. The enemy wants you hurried, unsettled, and reactive. God wants you rooted, still, and discerning. So do not rush, do not panic, simply breathe deeply. Let each breath remind you that God has not left you for a single moment. Engage these 7 points of truth, not with fear, but with quiet authority. Let them settle into your mind. Let them shape your inner posture, and let them awaken the strength that has been dormant within you. As you hold to these truths, the gentle, persistent, and unshakable light of God begins to dissolve the film of darkness from your spiritual vision. What was confusing becomes clear. What felt threatening becomes powerless. What seemed overwhelming becomes manageable beneath the weight of divine clarity. Your path is anointed. Your steps are guided. Your victory is already written in heaven's records. Nothing formed against you can stand, not when your spirit is anchored in truth and your heart remains aligned with God's rhythm. Walk in peace, not a fragile peace that shatters under pressure, but a fortified peace that stands firm in storms. For the one who called you walks beside you, and in that assurance you are unstoppable. Amen.